One question that I'm curious about in your exposure and experience with mountain lakes, Alabama Bass Trail, what for you has changed, say, in the last 10 years or so, from when you started to where you are today? What's changed the most for you?
I would have to say, the effects of social media. I think social media has changed our entire world. It makes us accessible even more than email. Cell phones, of course, but social media, there's so much, I guess, archived on social media. People are able to show their catches. They're able to post their pictures to Instagram. They're able to post everything to social media, good and bad. Alabama has seen its share of bad publicity on social media with the situation that happened a couple weeks ago with the young lady going missing. We've had good and bad. The cool thing that we've seen is we see people post first catches. You see the kids holding the rod and you see them smiling and you see husband and wives enjoying this together. And I think that's the greatest thing about fishing is it crosses all genres and all stereotypes and all. I just think it crosses all of those. But I think social media probably for me has been the biggest change and the biggest thing that I think we said this yesterday. When we're talking sponsorships and things, we used to just think about, okay, we got to compete against other tournament trails and anglers. We never considered the content influencers. And that's a thing now that's in that pot that there's still just so much dollars to go around, but now you've got to talk about content influencers and then those with athletes and stuff now. So I think social media and I think for a large majority it's been positive. It's an inexpensive way to get our message out. It has the opportunity to reach thousands. I love our podcast. I love doing the podcast. I love hearing from our anglers and some of our sponsors. But I do think social media has totally changed the way we all do business. And if you're not paying attention to that and you're not investing in that from your business, especially from a tourism perspective, you have really missed the boat for sure. No pun intended.
I love what you just shared, and when I have the show notes up, I'm gonna be sharing the quote you just had about the influence in the podcasting, because that is perfect. Is that's a struggle even with this podcast, of to a tourism association or to
Mhm.
a local tourism agency, a chamber, why podcasting is a way to exponentially grow your message and to share it.
Mhm.
How's it been for you with the Alabama Bass Trail podcast? Because you're pretty good at it. You're doing great on this episode. And it's like I said, for our guests, this is not Kay's first rodeo here. Okay, she's the host of her own podcast. But what's that experience been like for you?
When we started the podcast, I was really scared of it, but I always knew I had the face for podcasting
I
because
say that too. I got a great
I
face
don't
for
do
radio.
I don't do video podcasting, although I think that's a step that we're moving into probably in October. I love the opportunity to give our anglers a voice, to give them an opportunity and to talk about something that they are so passionate about. And so I love that opportunity. It's always a great opportunity for me to be able to showcase our sponsors. But to be honest with you, I went through a lull in October, November. The guy that was co-hosting with me left and moved into a different realm. And he was the one who did all the podcasting, recorded it all, and put it all together, and added the TV, added the commercials, and edited and all that. I was lost. I'll be real honest with you. I'm 51 years old and I had to learn all this new stuff. And I had to learn how to do virtual meetings on Facebook and I had to learn how to do all this. And it literally took me 3 weeks of just sitting down and shutting everything off and just figuring it out. But once I got back in the hang of it, talking to the anglers is no problem for me. I much rather talk than type. I'd much rather not have to type a letter or a presentation out. I'd much rather talk about it. So, I think just giving our anglers a platform to talk about their success because it is hard to win an Alabama Bass Trail Tournament. 224 teams going out every time you're going out, and your boat number plays such a significant role, and for these guys to battle through the weather conditions and the boat number and the whatever else they have going on at work and their personal life and whatever, and being able to talk about that, and celebrate that, I think is probably one of my favorite, things about the podcast. Sometimes I worry about having good relative content, because it's hard to come up with something new. Now, if I could sit and talk about I've added a little series at the end of our, podcast now that talks about all the great things to do, see, and buy in Alabama, and that's kinda neat because I get to talk about places I've actually experienced and, encourage people to go out and do that. I'm not an influencer. If I'm an influencer on anything, it's what boots to buy because I do have a huge selection of those. But, I think probably just giving our anglers that's what live was about to me, because before live, I'd come to boat check, and at 6:30, boats are gone. Kay would go back to her room and try to take a nap and be at the weigh-in at 1. Well, now boats are blasted off at 6:30. Kay's on live till 11, and then she goes to lunch and comes back and is at the weigh-in at 1. So there's no nap time now. So it certainly wasn't easier for me to do that, but it was able for mamas and wives and kids at home. The amount of pictures that I get of wives that'll take a picture of their son sitting there watching daddy fish on live is amazing to me because we tell them a couple days early if we're putting a tracker on them or we're putting a camera on them so they can tell their families. And to be able to see that and to see the little kids running around with their ABT shirts on, I think just the live and the podcast and everything we can do to give our anglers a bigger platform to share their passion is that to me makes it worth every bit of angst that I have to sit down and write what content we're gonna have for that week.
Well, you've just presented a great story, a
Well,
success
thank
story, and I know you're doing a great job. And by the way, if you ever need a co-host, fill in, and I am looking for a new place to live, by the way. That's a whole other story, but just you know who to call now. But you're
Well,
doing a
thank
great
you.
job, and just
Thank you.
and really excited to be able to share this episode with our audience.